You ever walk into a room and instantly feel like you don't belong there? Not because anyone says it, but because it's written in their faces, etched in the silence between fake smiles and forced handshakes. That's exactly how I felt the second I walked into my brother's wedding rehearsal dinner. My name's Nathan. I'm 29. I work in software engineering, live modestly in a quiet apartment, and, for the most part, keep to myself. I'm not flashy, I don't brag, and I've never really felt the need to prove myself to anyone, except maybe my dad. Not because I want his approval, I stopped chasing that a long time ago, but because he's made it his life's mission to treat me like I'm the family's unfinished project. My younger brother, Ryan, is the golden boy. Always has been. He's 27, charismatic, ambitious, and never misses an opportunity to remind people of how well he's doing. Ivy League education, fancy job in finance, glossy engagement photos in Tuscany. He's basically a walking LinkedIn success story. And my dad? Let's just say if Ryan sneezes, my dad claps. He's been grooming him since high school to be the man of the house. Whatever that even means when you've got two living, breathing adult sons under the same roof. I used to think it was in my head, this favoritism. Maybe I was just sensitive, you know? But over the years, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Ryan gets a flat tire. Dad calls roadside assistance before Ryan even finishes his sentence. I get bronchitis and miss Christmas dinner, and Dad calls me a flake. Ryan crashes Mom's car in college, and Dad blames the manufacturer. I forget to RSVP to a family barbecue, and suddenly I'm disrespecting the family legacy. Mom's always tried to keep things balanced, but she's quiet. Sweet, but quiet. And I don't blame her. Living with my dad's ego is like walking on a frozen lake in spring. You never know which step will crack the surface. The man is a retired military officer, and he still runs family dinners like he's commanding a unit. No talking out of turn, elbows off the table, and for the love of all that is holy, don't interrupt him during his Sunday football decompression time. He believes in earning respect, but only ever applies that rule to me. Ryan? Ryan could slap a waiter, and Dad would say the guy probably deserved it. So when Ryan's wedding rolled around, I already knew I was going to be more prop than person. I'd RSVP'd early, offered to help set up the venue, even volunteered to design the wedding website since it's kind of in my wheelhouse. The only response I got was a thumbs-up emoji from Ryan and a forwarded email from Dad telling me what color suit not to wear so I didn't ruin the photos. No thanks, no appreciate you, just instructions. Typical, but I still showed up. I always do. Because for all the ways they've made me feel like a second-class citizen in my own family, I can't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, if I keep showing up, something will shift. That maybe someone will finally notice that I'm not the screw-up they've decided I am. Or maybe I'm just stubborn. Either way, I walked into that rehearsal dinner in my best black suit, gift in hand, and that familiar pit in my stomach. The venue was this overpriced vineyard Ryan and his fiancée, Emma, had rented for the entire weekend. It screamed, "Look how successful we are." All exposed wood, hanging fairy lights, and servers in black bow ties. I walked in and scanned the room, catching sight of my dad at the center of it all, laughing with Emma's parents like he'd just told the funniest joke in the world. Ryan spotted me first. He gave me that grin, half warm, half condescending, that he always used when we were kids and he'd beaten me at something. "Nate, you made it," he said, coming over and clapping me on the back. "We were starting to think you'd bail." "Yeah, wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a smile. "You clean up nice," he added, with a wink that felt more mocking than genuine. I brushed it off and made my way toward the gift table to drop off the box I'd wrapped myself. Custom-engraved whiskey glasses and a bottle of 18-year-old scotch I'd spent way too much on. I turned around and nearly bumped into Dad. He was holding a glass of white wine and looking at me like I'd just tracked mud into the Vatican. "Glad you could finally grace us with your presence," he said. "It's the rehearsal dinner, Dad. I'm right on time." He smirked. For once. I let that one slide too. I'd had years of practice. But something in his tone stuck with me. It wasn't just a jab. It was calculated. Like he wanted to remind me, in front of everyone, of where I stood. I looked over at Ryan, who was now surrounded by a group of groomsmen, laughing and telling some story that ended in synchronized applause. Emma walked in shortly after, glowing in a cream-colored cocktail dress, and the room practically shifted to orbit around her. I stood by the bar, invisible again. Dinner was served, toasts were made, and I sat through every speech, every clink of the glass, nodding and smiling like I was part of it. Emma's dad made a charming speech about watching his daughter grow up. Her mom cried. One of Ryan's college friends told a story about their wild spring break trip. Everyone laughed. I stayed seated, waiting for the moment Dad would call on me for a quick word. It never came. Even when Ryan asked if anyone else wanted to share, Dad looked right past me and raised his glass. That's enough. Let's not drag this on. Let's let the man of the hour have the last word. That stung, but I swallowed it down like I always did. After dinner, I stepped outside for some air, trying to remind myself that it wasn't my night. It was Ryan's. Maybe I was being too sensitive again. Maybe. That's when I overheard it. I was standing near one of the large open windows that led to the patio when I heard Dad's voice. Loud, unmistakable, already a few drinks in. Ryan's always been a natural leader. Always knew what he wanted. Not like Nathan. That one's still trying to figure out if he wants to be a man or a mouse. Laughter. Actual laughter. I froze. My heart pounded in my ears, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard him. Maybe someone else had said it. But no, it was him. My father. The same man who used to help me build Lego castles on Sunday afternoons before Ryan was born. The same man who taught me how to ride a bike, and then walked away when I fell, telling me to man up. The same man who stopped asking how work was going the second Ryan got promoted to senior analyst. I backed away from the window and took the long way around the patio, walking down past the rows of grapevines and letting the cool air hit my face. I don't know how long I was out there, but when I came back, the night was winding down. People were saying their goodbyes, kissing cheeks, exchanging plans for the big day tomorrow. I gave Ryan a nod and told him I'd see him in the morning. He gave me that same grin. You sure you're gonna make it? And that was it. That was the moment I decided I was done playing the punching bag. Because what none of them knew, what Dad in particular had no idea about, was that I had something he desperately didn't want getting out. A secret he'd buried so deep, he probably thought it was gone for good. But I'd found it, months ago, and until tonight, I wasn't sure what to do with it. But now I had a plan, and I wasn't just going to attend the wedding. I was going to make sure it was a day my father would never forget. Not for the reasons he wanted, and definitely not for the reasons anyone in that room expected. By the time I got back to my hotel room that night, the gift bag they'd given all the groomsmen was sitting on my bed like a slap in the face. Inside was a small bottle of cologne, a pair of socks with Ryan's initials on them, and a folded itinerary that felt more like military orders than a schedule. My name was spelled wrong on the card. Nathaniel, instead of just Nathan. Ryan knew I hated being called that, but of course, the wedding planner probably got her info straight from him. The next morning started early. Breakfast at 7, photos at 9, ceremony run-through at 11. Everything was on a tight schedule. I showed up 5 minutes early to the photo shoot in the vineyard, fully dressed and ready, only to find that they'd already taken most of the shots without me. Ryan was standing front and center with the other groomsmen, laughing about something with his best man, Joel. I waved awkwardly from the gravel path, and the photographer, some artsy guy with a man bun and an oversized camera, just looked confused. Oh, you must be, sorry, remind me which one you are, he asked. I'm his brother, I said, walking up. Groomsman. The photographer's eyebrows shot up. Oh, we didn't get any notes on a brother. You sure you're on the list? Pretty sure, I muttered. Ryan walked over, smirking. Sorry, Nate. Miscommunication. We weren't sure you were going to make it on time. I was early. He shrugged. Well, you can jump in a few of the group shots now. I smiled tightly, stepped into position, and endured 20 minutes of fake smiling while Ryan made sure to place himself between me and the rest of the group in every frame. When the photographer asked for a siblings-only shot, Ryan waved him off. We'll get that later, he said. Don't worry about it. Later never came. After the photos, I found myself helping one of the venue staff carry chairs up from the lower terrace, mostly because no one else offered. I didn't mind helping, I never do, but it felt telling. Every time I turned around, Dad was holding court with Emma's uncles, telling stories about raising 2 boys, like we were war stories from his time overseas. The stories always ended the same way. Ryan pulling through, me being a bit too quiet for my own good. The worst part was the way people laughed like it was all in good fun, like I wasn't standing right there. At lunch, The groomsmen were given matching watches to wear during the ceremony. Ryan handed them out one by one with a speech for each guy, how he met them, what they meant to him, little inside jokes. When he got to me, he hesitated. "Nathan," he said, looking at me like I was a substitute teacher who'd just walked into the wrong classroom. "Well, you've always been there, I guess. So yeah, thanks for coming." He handed me the watch last. No speech, no joke, just an awkward pat on the shoulder and a glance to move on. Everyone laughed nervously. I didn't say a word. Later that afternoon, as the final preparations were being made, I ducked into the main hall to grab my phone charger. That's when I saw it. On the far side of the room, a long table set up for the reception. The seating chart had been printed and framed like a museum piece. I scanned it casually, just to see where I'd end up. My name wasn't at the family table, or the groomsmen's table, or anywhere near the front. I was seated at table 14, the last one, in the corner, with a bunch of distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. That was the first real punch in the gut. The first moment I felt something inside me start to crack. I walked outside, needing air. Just air. Maybe a stiff drink. Maybe a drive. Something. Anything. I ended up pacing near the gravel lot behind the vineyard, where no one could see me. Except someone did. Emma's younger brother, Evan, who was maybe 19 and full of the kind of casual honesty only kids that age still have. "Hey," he said, jogging up. "You okay, man? You look like someone just shot your dog." "Fine," I said, maybe too quickly. He looked at me. "You're Ryan's brother, right?" "Yeah. I thought you were his cousin or something. You're not in any of the family photos." Of course I wasn't. He hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket. A folded-up sheet of paper. "I found this in the trash earlier. Didn't know if it meant anything, but..." He handed it to me and walked off. I unfolded it. It was the original seating chart, the one with scribbled notes and edits all over it. My name had originally been up near the front. Groomsman table. Circled, then scratched out. And in Dad's handwriting. Yes, I'd recognize that jagged, all-caps style anywhere. It read, "Better off at table 14. He'll sulk less there." I don't know how long I stood there staring at it. Minutes? Hours. My hands shook. My ears buzzed. And something in me broke. Not snapped. Broke. Like a chain that had finally rusted through. I didn't go back inside. I walked to my rental car, sat in the front seat, and stared at the dashboard for a long time. My brain was quiet. Too quiet. But behind that silence, something was simmering. Slow. Heavy. Final. This wasn't just favoritism. It wasn't just casual disrespect. This was calculated. Planned. I was being erased. But here's the thing they'd all forgotten. Probably because I was always so quiet, or soft-spoken, or the mouse in the room. I know things. I see things. And I don't forget. Like the time 5 years ago when Mom called me in tears, whispering from the laundry room, so Dad couldn't hear. She was scared. Said something was off with their finances. That the bank account had a withdrawal she didn't recognize. A big one. $42,000. When she asked Dad, he brushed her off. "Tax stuff," he said. "Investment move. Don't worry about it." But I did worry. So I pulled the monthly statement from their shared email account. Yes, I still remembered the password because I'd set it up for them in high school. What I found wasn't tax stuff. It was a payment. To a woman. The name meant nothing to me at first. But when I looked her up, let's just say the resemblance between her son and my brother Ryan would make anyone's stomach drop. I never told Mom. Never told Ryan. Never told anyone. I buried it. Like I was trained to do. Like I always did. But that document, those receipts, those paternity tests I ordered myself out of sick curiosity, the email backup I downloaded and stored on a secure cloud folder under a fake username, all of it? It still existed. And it still had Dad's name all over it. I hadn't looked at that folder in years. Until now. When the rehearsal dinner ended that night, I was barely present. I smiled. I laughed when expected. But in my mind, I was already mapping it all out. The timing. The location. Who would be in the room. And what I would say. The wedding day arrived sunny and perfect. The kind of day people hope for when they drop 40 grand on a vineyard venue. Everyone was buzzing. Bridesmaids in pastel dresses. Groomsmen running around making sure ties were straight and jackets weren't wrinkled. I kept to myself. Checked my notes one last time. Made sure the USB drive was in my inside jacket pocket. The ceremony passed in a blur. I walked down the aisle with one of Emma's cousins, stood beside Ryan while he said his vows, smiled politely at the appropriate moments. When the couple kissed and the crowd erupted in applause, I clapped with everyone else. But inside, I was miles away. Dinner started. Toasts began. First Emma's parents. Then Ryan's best man. Then Emma herself. And then it was Dad's turn. He stood, champagne glass in hand, wearing his signature smirk. The room quieted. Cameras rolled. He cleared his throat dramatically. "Today is a proud day," he began. "My younger son, my bright, brilliant, decisive younger son, has stepped into manhood. A provider, a husband, a leader." Ryan grinned from ear to ear. "And while I won't name names," Dad continued, chuckling, "it's clear that in this family, one son became a man. And the other, well," he paused, smiled, raised his glass, "just became a disappointment." Laughter. Actual laughter. Even some of the groomsmen chuckled. My heart pounded in my chest. My hands were steady. I felt nothing and everything all at once. I stood up. "Mind if I say a few words?" I asked. Dad blinked. "This is hardly." "Just a minute," I said. Emma looked confused. Ryan squinted like he didn't trust whatever was coming next. But I was already walking to the center of the room. To the mic. I took it gently. Tapped it once. And when I looked up, the room was silent. Everyone watching. Perfect. And that's when I said, "You ever feel the air shift in a room before a storm? That sudden vacuum of sound, like the world is holding its breath?" That's exactly what it felt like the moment I touched the mic. I looked around the reception hall. Rows of fairy lights twinkled above our heads. Champagne glasses half raised. Frozen smiles. I spotted Ryan in his chair, staring at me with narrowed eyes. Emma had that polite, confused smile people wear when they're praying you don't ruin the mood. And Dad, he was frozen mid-sip, glass halfway to his mouth. Eyes like daggers. I should have felt nervous. I didn't. I should have second-guessed myself. I didn't. Because in that moment, standing there in a pressed suit I'd paid for myself, in a room full of people who'd written me off, I wasn't the disappointment. I was the only person in that room finally telling the truth. But I didn't say everything. I didn't reveal the secret. Not yet. I took a deep breath and gave a toast. A normal one. Short, simple, polite. I congratulated Ryan and Emma. Wished them happiness. Made one dry joke about growing up with a brother who used to lock me out of the bathroom just to make me late for school. People chuckled. Then I set the mic down and walked off. I could feel the confusion ripple through the room. Dad looked like he was holding back a snide remark. I let him stew. Because the thing is, revenge isn't about the moment. It's about the lead-up. And mine had just begun. But first, I had to survive what came next. After the reception, I slipped out quietly, while everyone else headed to the after-party. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. I knew what was coming. And I wasn't wrong. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my father. One voicemail. "Nathan," his voice growled through the speaker. "If you ever pull a stunt like that again, grandstanding at your brother's wedding, you're out of this family for good. Do you understand me?" I stared at the phone, then deleted the message. Out of the family. As far as I was concerned, I'd never truly been in it. The fallout came faster than I expected. Ryan texted me later that day. "Not cool, man. You made the night about you." Emma unfollowed me on Instagram. And within a week, my parents had accidentally left me out of the family group chat where they shared all the wedding photos. I saw them through my cousin's phone anyway. Dozens of pictures, speeches, dancing, the bouquet toss. I was in 3 photos. Total. And in one of them, I was in the background, looking the wrong way. I won't lie. That week hit hard. Harder than I thought it would. Because even though I'd spent years telling myself I didn't care, pretending I'd built up armor against their favoritism and their subtle digs, the truth is, when your own family collectively decides you're expendable, it feels like grief. Grief for a version of yourself that kept holding out hope. I went back to my apartment and crashed. I called in sick to work. I stopped checking my phone. I let dishes pile up. Laundry went unwashed. I didn't even open my blinds for 3 days. It wasn't depression exactly. It was something murkier. A numbness that spread from the inside out. At one point, I stood in front of my mirror and tried to imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Someone louder. Funnier. More impressive. Someone like Ryan. Would Dad love me more if I talked about stock portfolios and wore designer watches? Probably not. Because it was never about that. It was about control. And I had stopped playing the part they wrote for me. That's when something shifted. Not all at once. Not some grand moment of clarity. Just a small realization, like the first flicker of dawn under a heavy sky. I still had the truth. And more than that, I had myself. I opened my laptop, clicked into the folder I'd kept untouched for 5 years. The emails, the payment records, the flight itineraries, the correspondence between Dad and the woman whose name still made my chest tighten. It was all still there. I could have blown it all up right then and there. But something told me no, not yet. First, I needed to rebuild. Because when you've been underestimated your entire life, there's nothing more dangerous than finding your footing. So I got up, and I started small. I cleaned my apartment, dusted off the books on my shelf, cooked myself real meals instead of eating over the sink. I hit the gym, not to get jacked or impress anyone, just to prove I could take care of myself. Then I turned my attention to work. I'd been coasting at my job for a while, mostly because the voice in my head, Dad's voice, kept saying, "You'll never be a leader." But the thing is, I'm good at what I do. Damn good. I manage back-end systems for a mid-sized tech company. Not glamorous, but stable. And over the years, I'd quietly solved some pretty complex issues that saved the company thousands. I just never talked about it. Now I did. I started documenting my work, submitting detailed reports, speaking up in meetings. My manager noticed. She pulled me aside after a particularly smooth product launch and said, "I don't know what changed, but you've really stepped it up." I stopped apologizing for existing, I told her. She laughed. "Whatever it is, keep doing it." 3 months later, I got a promotion. Team lead. With a pay bump big enough that I finally moved into a better apartment across town. One with sunlight, a balcony, and a kitchen I didn't hate. I bought a proper espresso machine. A small luxury, but it made me feel like I was building something that belonged to me. And the best part? No one knew. I didn't post about it. I didn't call home to brag. I didn't send some dramatic message to Ryan or Dad. Because my success wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving me right. Of course, silence has a way of making people nervous. One night, 6 months after the wedding, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was hesitant. Fragile. "Hi, sweetheart. I wanted to check on you." "I'm good, Mom," I said honestly. "Really?" There was a long pause. "Your father says you're being dramatic. That you're punishing us." "I'm not punishing anyone," I replied. "I just needed space." "I understand," she said softly. "But, just so you know, I didn't agree with what he said. At the wedding. That toast, it was cruel. I didn't say anything. And I saw the seating chart," she added. "I didn't know until after. I would have changed it if I had." "I know, Mom." We sat in silence for a while. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "You've always been the strong one, you know." I almost laughed. "That's not how Dad sees it." "No," she agreed. "But maybe that's because you don't need his approval the way Ryan does." We talked for another hour. She told me she missed me, that the house was quiet, that even Dad had been asking about me in his own roundabout way, grumbling about lack of respect, but checking my LinkedIn on his work laptop like a teenager stalking an ex. I didn't say it then, but it hit me. They'd noticed. The silence had worked. The absence spoke louder than anything I could have shouted in that reception hall. And yet, the part of me that had once wanted to explode everything, it wasn't gone. It was waiting, patiently, because even as I rebuilt myself, bit by bit, brick by brick, I knew the moment would come when Dad's house of cards would start to tilt. And when it did, I would be ready, not just to watch it fall, but to make sure it never stood again. And that moment, it came in the form of a phone call. From Ryan. 3 weeks after my promotion. 2 weeks after I moved into my new place. 1 week after I finally started sleeping through the night without waking up from dreams of that wedding. He called late. Too late for it to be casual. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "I know we haven't talked in a while. I need to ask you something." I leaned back in my chair. "Go on. You remember Dad's old house in Fairview? The one he sold a few years back?" "Yeah. Well, turns out it wasn't legally his to sell." I blinked. "What?" I didn't know either, but apparently Mom had joint ownership through some trust her father set up. And the buyer is suing because they claim the paperwork was forged. They're dragging Dad into court over it. "And why are you telling me this?" I asked. Another pause. "Because your name came up. In an email." My pulse slowed. Here it was. The storm. But I didn't panic. I smiled. Because that folder? It didn't just contain the secret about the other child. It contained every financial lie Dad had told for the past 25 years. Emails. PDFs, conversations he thought were deleted. And my name was on the one that could burn it all down. Ryan didn't know what I was thinking, but he was about to find out. I let Ryan's words hang in the air for a few seconds longer than necessary. Your name came up. A lesser version of me, the old me, might have sputtered, might have denied or deflected or stumbled into a panic, assuming the worst. But this version, the one who'd been dismissed, disrespected, and disowned only to rebuild himself stronger, he didn't flinch. So I leaned back, phone still pressed to my ear, and calmly said, "Interesting. Why would I come up in an email about a house I had nothing to do with?" Ryan hesitated. I could hear him fiddling with something. Maybe a pen, maybe the zipper on one of those overpriced vests he always wore. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "It was forwarded to me by Dad's lawyer. Some old correspondence from years ago. Something about a document audit. Your name was listed on the CC line." He paused, like he was trying to gauge how much I already knew. "Look, man, this is serious. Like, potentially criminal." "Yeah," I said, letting the word roll off my tongue. "Sounds like it." Another pause. Then Ryan dropped the polite tone. "Okay, cut the crap. Did you save anything? Files? Emails? I need to know what you have." There it was. The shift. The first crack in the armor. For the first time in my life, Ryan wasn't condescending. He wasn't smug. He was desperate. And that told me everything I needed to know. "Why do you care?" I asked flatly. "Because Dad is pulling me into this mess," Ryan snapped. "He used my name as a reference in some of those property transfers. He told me to sign a few forms a while back, said it was just routine. But now, the buyer's attorney is digging through everything." "Wow," I said. "And to think, just a few months ago, I was a disappointment. Now I'm suddenly important again." "Come on, Nathan." "No," I interrupted, voice sharper than I expected. "You don't get to come to me now, after everything. You and Dad humiliated me in front of 120 people. You pushed me to the edge and didn't blink. You've never once treated me like a brother, only like a placeholder. And now you're in trouble, and I'm supposed to drop everything and help." "I didn't know," he said, suddenly quiet. "You didn't want to know." He didn't argue, because he couldn't. "I need time to think," I said, and hung up. Then I turned to my laptop and opened that folder again. My little vault of truth, 5 gigabytes of scanned PDFs, exported emails, phone call recordings, even an old letter my dad had written to a lawyer back when he thought no one else would ever read it. And that's when I started planning, not just to expose the truth, but to finally take back everything they had tried to strip from me. My name, my voice, my power. The first thing I did was call someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade, my cousin Malcolm. Malcolm was the only other black sheep in our family. He'd been pushed out early, blamed for bad grades, reckless choices, and disrespecting the family name. But the truth? He was just the first to stand up to Dad. He moved across the country at 21 and built a life without ever looking back. He picked up on the third ring. "Nate," he said, surprised. "Man, I haven't heard from you since." "Since Grandpa's funeral, I finished." "Yeah. What's going on?" "I need your help," I said. "But first, I need to tell you something. Something about my father." We talked for 2 hours. I told him everything, starting with the wedding toast and ending with the fake property sale. Malcolm whistled low. "Damn, I always knew Uncle Henry was shady, but this is next level." "Yeah, and it's all in writing." "You planning to go nuclear?" "Eventually," I said. "But smart nuclear." He laughed. "All right, what do you need from me?" Malcolm, as it turns out, worked in real estate compliance. He wasn't just a black sheep. He was a black sheep with legal expertise. The perfect ally. Over the next few weeks, we built a strategy. He helped me organize the documents, highlighting every forged signature, every misfiled form, every timestamp that didn't match up. Then he referred me to someone named Hannah. Hannah was a forensic accountant. Not cheap, but terrifyingly good at what she did. When I sent her the file folder, she emailed me back the next day. "You realize this could put someone in jail, right?" I replied, "That's the idea." While the investigation team did their thing, I went quiet. I didn't reply to Ryan's texts, didn't return Mom's calls. Dad didn't reach out at all, which made sense. He'd rather die than admit he needed me. He'd already made his choice the moment he raised that champagne glass. But Ryan kept pushing. He showed up at my apartment once, unannounced. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched through the peephole as he stood there in a tailored suit, knocking with increasing desperation. Nathan, come on, he said. We're family. You can't seriously want to see Dad go to jail. I didn't answer, because that was the first time I realized. Yes, I absolutely could. At the same time, something strange started happening. People in my extended family started reaching out. Aunt Laura sent me a message. Heard what happened at the wedding. You didn't deserve that. My older cousin Jen, who I hadn't spoken to in years, commented on one of my posts. Always knew you were the smart one. Even Mom sent a letter, handwritten, 2 pages long, saying she was sorry for not speaking up sooner. She said the house was cold without me. That Dad barely spoke anymore. That even Ryan seemed rattled. I didn't reply, but I saved the letter. Not because I forgave her, but because for once she was trying. Then the opportunity came. A nonprofit I followed put out a call for guest speakers, people willing to talk about personal experiences related to fraud and financial manipulation. They were hosting a panel called The Quiet Ones, aimed at exposing how often abuse hides behind polite smiles and family wealth. I signed up, and when they asked if I wanted to remain anonymous, I said no. I used my full name. I told my story, not with names or specific accusations, but with emotion, with truth. I talked about growing up under someone who weaponized disappointment, about being written off, about discovering, by accident, that my father had lied not just to his family, but to the law. The video went semi-viral in certain circles. Nothing massive, but enough. Enough that a few legal bloggers picked it up. Enough that one morning, a reporter emailed me asking for comment. And that's when I made my move. I sent an email to my father. Short, direct, cold. Subject, pending legal exposure. I have documentation of multiple property sales involving falsified signatures, unauthorized account withdrawals, and at least one undeclared dependent whose existence may impact inheritance claims. You have 7 days to come clean, to Mom, to Ryan, to the people you lied to. If you don't, I will. Nathan. He didn't reply. Of course he didn't. But 4 days later, Ryan called. He's freaking out, he said. He fired his lawyer. He thinks you're bluffing. I didn't say anything. Ryan sighed. Look, I know you don't owe me anything. But I didn't know about any of this. He used me too. I believe that. Partially. Then maybe it's time you stop letting him. What are you planning to do? I paused and said, something permanent. The last piece fell into place on a Thursday morning. I got a call from Hannah. She had cross-referenced the payment trail between Dad's accounts and the woman we suspected was his former mistress. Not only did the money match, but there was clear evidence of monthly deposits labeled as educational expenses, which wouldn't be damning if the kid wasn't 23 now and living under a different last name. Hannah had even found a photo. The resemblance to Ryan was uncanny. So I printed everything, put it all in a manila folder, and mailed it, with no return address, to my family's house, to my mother. But I didn't stop there, because I wasn't just going to whisper the truth. I was going to make it echo. And I knew the exact moment to strike. The charity gala, a lavish annual event hosted by one of Dad's old military buddies. An invitation-only affair where reputation meant everything. Every year, Dad went. Every year, he dragged Ryan along like a trophy. But this year, someone else got an invite too. Me, as a guest speaker. Because one of the event's themes was financial transparency. And my nonprofit panel, it had reached the organizer. I RSVP'd yes. And on the night of the gala, I stood backstage, folder in hand, watching as Dad laughed and shook hands with people in tailored suits and expensive dresses, completely unaware that the storm was already here. And I was holding the lightning. I'd never worn a tuxedo before that night. It wasn't because I couldn't afford one. After my promotion and the consulting work I picked up on the side, I could have rented 10. But I always saw tuxedos as something reserved for those events. The kind I never got invited to. The kind where I was either forgotten or deliberately excluded. The kind where Dad and Ryan belonged. But that night, I belonged. I arrived at the gala 10 minutes early, which put me ahead of fashionably late and just behind the truly important. The ballroom was massive, gold trim, crystal chandeliers, the smell of money and perfume mingling in the air. A string quartet played something classical in the background while servers moved silently between conversations, offering champagne in tall, trembling flutes. And there he was, my father, standing near the center of it all, like always. Perfect posture, silver cufflinks, the polished gleam of someone who believed the world still hadn't caught up to his greatness. Ryan stood beside him, less confident than usual, a little stiff, eyes darting. He'd seen the folder. That much was clear. He wasn't laughing or charming anyone. He looked like a man trying to hold a house of cards still in a wind tunnel. They hadn't seen me yet. I kept to the shadows, sipping water and watching the pieces move. Then the host took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into the mic, "thank you all for being here tonight. Our theme is truth in financial leadership, a topic more timely than ever." A soft wave of polite applause. "I'd like to introduce someone whose story moved me. A story about integrity, about silence, and about speaking up when it matters most. Please welcome Nathan Whitmore." And just like that, every head turned. My father's included. His eyes found mine, and for the first time in my life, I saw panic. Not frustration, not disappointment. Panic. I walked slowly to the stage. Calm, collected, every step deliberate. The lights hit me like a wave, but I didn't blink. I stood behind the podium, took a slow breath, and began. "When I was growing up," I said, "I thought silence was strength. I thought keeping your head down, working hard, and not rocking the boat would eventually earn you respect. But what I've learned is that silence often protects the wrong people." I let that sit for a second. My father taught me that. Not through words, but through actions. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I glanced at him. He stood frozen, jaw tight, Ryan whispering something into his ear that he clearly wasn't hearing. "I won't name names tonight," I continued, "because this isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. It's about recognizing the damage that comes from prioritizing image over integrity." I shared a carefully curated version of the story, how I discovered falsified documents, fraudulent transactions, years of deceit. I spoke of the pain of being overlooked, the weight of carrying secrets that didn't belong to me, the exhaustion of pretending everything was fine just to preserve a lie. And then I dropped the hammer. "These documents," I said, holding up the now infamous Manila folder, "have been submitted to the appropriate legal authorities. Investigations are ongoing. The evidence is clear. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Eventually, the truth finds its way out." Silence. Thick. Tense. Charged. I didn't need applause. I didn't need validation. I stepped down from the podium and walked past my father without acknowledging him. The crowd parted like a sea. Eyes followed me all the way to the exit. And that was enough. The fallout wasn't immediate. It never is with men like my father. They scramble. They flail. They deny. For 2 weeks, he did exactly that. Told everyone I was bitter, that I'd fabricated everything, that I was lashing out because I couldn't handle Ryan's success. He played the part well, right down to the forced tears when he called Mom the only real victim in all of this. But the thing about forensic accounting, it doesn't care about your reputation. It cares about numbers. And the numbers didn't lie. Neither did the signatures, or the time-stamped emails, or the voice memos. The IRS launched a full audit. 2 private property buyers filed fraud complaints. His name was quietly removed from the board of the veterans charity he once chaired. By the end of the month, 3 different lawsuits were pending. His lawyer quit. The house in New Haven, his retirement escape, was frozen as part of a legal hold. Mom filed for legal separation shortly after. I never asked her to, but when she called, I could hear something in her voice I'd never heard before. Freedom. As for Ryan, he played dumb, tried to distance himself, claimed he never knew, that he was just following instructions. But the digital trail was messy, sloppy. He'd signed more than he realized, involved himself in more than he remembered. The SEC sent him a letter of inquiry regarding his role in an investment deal tied to Dad's fraudulent accounts. Nothing criminal, but enough to scare his employer. He was let go quietly 2 months later. Last I heard, he was bartending in Hoboken while trying to land a job that didn't require background checks. I didn't feel sorry for him. He'd had every chance to stand beside me. He chose to stand on me instead. People often ask what I gained from all this. I didn't get money. I didn't want it. I didn't get some viral video or a book deal. I didn't even get a thank you from half the people who whispered behind my back at that wedding. But I got peace. I got silence that wasn't suffocating. I got space to breathe in a world where I didn't have to shrink myself to fit someone else's mold. I got late mornings and strong coffee and quiet evenings where I sat on my balcony watching the sun melt behind the city skyline, my skyline. Mine. And every now and then, I get a message. Someone from that wedding. Someone who laughed when my dad raised his glass and called me a disappointment. They write things like, I didn't realize how bad it was. You were always the better man. I'm sorry for not speaking up. I don't hold it against them. People follow the loudest voice in the room. For years, that was my father. But not anymore. Now they listen when I speak. Because the quiet ones, we're not weak. We're just waiting for the right moment. And when it comes, we don't shout. We shake the earth.